Let's talk quickly about FundingUniverse's SpeedPitch event. I'm going to give you a brief summary here of how SpeedPitch works and introduce you to the format, and then I'm going to explain in a lot more detail how to prepare your company to present at a SpeedPitch event. First of all, the format is very simple. SpeedPitch is a very fun event. We have usually between 7 and 12 tables. It's shaped in a U shape around the outside of a room. And on the inside of the table, we allow 2 of you to present, meaning you and maybe a business partner. And on the outside of each table, we have anywhere between 2 and 4 investors. And what happens is you're given 4 minutes to pitch. We have a timer counting down. We alert you when your time is up. Once your time is up, we then ask you to allow the investors at each table to ask you questions. We keep this open for 3 minutes. Once the 3 minutes is up, you get up, investors write down a little bit of feedback and express their interest in your company, and you move on to the next table. And it's as simple as that. You make your rounds from table to table. It's very akin to speed dating, for example. And once you've made your rounds to each table, the event is then over. We allow the investors to vote and crown a winner. And that's a brief summary of how the event works. So I want to get into some of the specifics, though, of how to prepare your company to present and get the most mileage out of a speed pitch event. The topics we're going to cover are basically slide by slide what you need to include in your presentation to get the most out of the event and to hopefully get as close to funding as possible, getting follow-on meetings and so forth. First of all, let's talk about the introduction slide. This is where you start. This is just a quick introduction of your business, one-line pitch. Dumb it down as much as you can and just introduce yourself, your business, and if you brought a partner alongside, introduce him or her. What this looks like visually is typically just a logo, maybe a product image if relevant. If you've got a tagline or something like that, or if your one-line pitch is short enough, you could throw on a little bit of text as well. But keep this short and sweet, 10 seconds max, and then move on to the problem or customer pain slide. In this slide, what you want to do is talk about the pain that your customer feels. Don't make the mistake that most entrepreneurs make in talking about the weaknesses or issues that each of your competitors have. That's what a lot of entrepreneurs tend to do. If I'm the investor, all I want to hear about in this slide is your customer. I don't want to hear a word about your competition at this point. What needs does your customer have that are currently going unmet? If you can make this become real in my mind as the investor, I'm going to be listening a lot more closely through the rest of the presentation. This slide is absolutely crucial. Back your claims with data. Make sure that I believe, because you've quantified the problem, that I really believe it. You'll get a lot further in your presentation with these investors if you do this. So next you're going to talk naturally about the solution. What solution does your company provide to the problems you listed in the previous slide? More importantly, can you prove that you've got the solution? Meaning any customer reviews or testimonials, some sort of satisfaction coming from the customer or some sort of quantifiable data that tells me whether or not you have a real viable solution is going to be important for me if I'm an investor. So make sure that you can quantify that. You're not just assuming that if you build this product, people are going to like it. You've got some sort of proof that people like it already because you've got some testimonials. Next, in your business model slide, answer 2 questions. Number 1, what do you do? Number 2, how do you make money doing it? Now, the what do you do is going to be a little bit more in detail than what you've already outlined in the solution slide. Specifically, if I'm an investor, what I'd like to see here is kind of a how it works type of scenario. So you could lay out a diagram, or you could give me some screenshots or something like that if you're a web-based business. Just give me the detail into where the customer starts, where they end up, and how you make money along the way. If it's not clear by this point in your presentation how you make money, you're going to lose the focus and attention of most of the investors at each table. Next, if you're a products-based business, I would like to see maybe some sort of product description. If you're at a table and you've got 2 to 4 investors sitting at that table, there's nothing wrong with bringing a physical product that you sell with you, as long as it's an appropriate size, so that an investor can see it and touch it and kind of get familiar with it. You want to spend very little time on this slide if you choose to even have it. In most cases, I would recommend that you don't have this slide. But if you do have a physical product, I'd probably spend a little bit of time showing the investor what it is, what's unique about it, and so forth. Next, tell me how you're going to get people to buy that product. This is one of the biggest hang-ups that investors tend to have. They believe that the product's pretty cool and that there might be some demand for it, but they don't necessarily know that you're able to sell it. So you need to really put those concerns to rest for investors, especially if you're a pre-revenue or early revenue business. Investors are going to have a really hard time accepting that you're going to become a $20 to $50 million company within 3 to 5 years when you're not generating any revenue yet. So what unique and interesting marketing strategies have you come up with that are going to ensure your success? Next, talk about your competition. I've just given a quick example here of cars. It's one thing that most people are pretty familiar with. This is a good competitive analysis. You can see Kia is your non-luxurious cheap car and Rolls-Royce is your ultra-luxurious expensive car. I've just given two variables here along an X and Y axis so I can see, if I'm an investor, at one shot where you fit into this whole puzzle. It's really, really useful to position yourself this way for an investor so that they can see where exactly are you most different from the other people competing in your industry. Preferably, if I'm the entrepreneur, if I'm the investor, I'd like to see you in the upper right-hand corner. So choose your variables wisely. If I am Kia, for example, I'm not going to put myself in the bottom left here. I'm going to switch the variables. I'm going to say affordability or economy and utility or something like that to really build my case for a viable option and carve myself a good little niche inside a certain marketplace so an investor can visualize why I'm different and why that's advantageous. Next, tell me any sustainable competitive advantages you have. Not customer service, not things like that. That's what a lot of entrepreneurs will do because they don't necessarily understand what a sustainable competitive advantage is. I would like to see intellectual property or partnerships or exclusive agreements or contracts in place. Those types of things really resonate a lot better with investors than your typical responses that entrepreneurs will give. Next, introduce the investors to your team. Why are you special? Why are you the best guys or gals for the job? I want the names and titles of the management team. Don't ever underestimate the value of good advisors and board members. I would like to see the names of those advisors if you have them. If you don't have them, I would work towards getting them today. Investors love to see that social proof. Next, discuss why investors should trust you. That's really what this comes down to. And the two things that are going to make them trust you above all else if you're an early stage company is, do you have directly related experience, and have any of you been an entrepreneur before? Specifically, have you built and sold a company? That's extremely interesting to an investor. If you're early enough or young enough of an entrepreneur that you don't have either of these two things going for you, you ought to have a lot of traction, or you're going to need to have a lot of traction showing that you can execute with this business because you've done it already. Next, and this is purposefully positioned towards the end of the presentation, I have projections and milestones. I've just given a condensed income statement here that gives an investor a quick visual snapshot of roughly when you expect to hit profitability. If you're verbally presenting this, I would like for you to tell me what month you plan to become profitable and start hitting cash flow positive. Next, I'd like to see years 3 through 5 to see what revenue total you're planning on hitting and how scalable that revenue is. How much profitable, what type of profit margins are you going to be hitting in those years? If I'm an investor, I want to see usually 20 million plus in revenue in that 3 to 5 year time frame. Next, give me your status and timeline. Specifically, just tell me what you look like today. Don't tell me what you're going to look like someday. Tell me who you are today, and focus on the good, obviously. What traction do you have, or proof that people are interested in what you're doing? So market acceptance in the form of revenue or profits or partnerships or product development, you're in beta, or you've got X number of users or X number of customers. That's what investors are looking for here. Any type of progress or traction you have helps mitigate their risk. and helps them really get comfortable with the idea of investing in your company. So make sure you really have a beefed out traction slide here. And then wrap up with your deal summary. You can state pre-money valuation if you would like, but in the end, it really just comes down to how much ownership are you offering for how much in funding. That's what it comes down to. And then what do you plan to use that funding for? Just a quick description. You don't need to spend more than 15-20 seconds on this slide, and you can move on and basically say thank you and open it up for Q&A. So that's really what this comes down to. Let me give you a few tips here to help you avoid some of the pitfalls that are common in a speed pitch event. Number one, speak loud. It's a crowded room when you've got 10 companies pitching and 20, 30 investors in a room. Make sure that with all that talking going on, you're loud enough for the folks at your table to hear you. Be short and sweet during your Q&A. If you're asked a challenging question and you're spending a minute or two answering it, you've just killed a potential of 5-10 questions that investors could have asked you to gain even more insight and get even more excited about your business. Images, diagrams, and charts, all of that helps you tell your story better than bullet points ever will. So don't give investors a lot of junk to read on your slides. Give them something to look at and then tell them what they're looking at. Be honest, especially in the Q&A, even if it's very painful to be honest. If you don't have the right answer and you know you don't know the answer, it's okay to simply state, I don't know the answer. Great question, I'll find out. The last thing you want to do is have an investor ask you a challenging question, you make up an answer, and have them find out that your answer was completely wrong. It destroys all credibility for you, whereas saying I don't know is actually okay. So make sure you're careful on that front. Bring the right people, or I should say the right person with you if you choose to not do it solo, so that you have the best possibility of answering every question in a impressive manner as possible. And then I recommend bringing a flip chart instead of a laptop or iPad. Give me 8.5 by 11 flip chart. You could get it spiral bound at Kinko's or something like that, or you could even just use a 3-ring binder with some sleeves. The problem with laptops are you never know what could go wrong. If you're planning on doing a video demo or something like that, what if the internet connection's down? What if your battery dies or your laptop crashes? I know that doesn't happen necessarily on an everyday basis, but if something could go wrong, it probably will, and it will never go wrong with a flip chart. So I recommend doing that. With that, I want to go ahead and say thanks and wish you all the best of luck in our Speed Pitch event, and the best of luck with your ventures. Thank you.